It's a box drum. It's called a cajon. It's a seat. So it's in the corner of the lounge. It's already out there on the deck because you got your mates over for a barbecue. It's good to have instruments out and ready to go. Because I'm a musician, I know when an instrument is really shining. But just the challenge of making an instrument sing, that's the thing.
What is the instrument we're talking about? Because this isn't something that's kind of easily understood like a guitar is, unless you're in the music scene. So what are the instruments?
So this instrument I've been building for the last 12 years now is called a cajon. It's a box drum. The player will be sitting on it and bending down and hitting it, maybe spinning it around, hitting other parts. And it sounds a bit like a drum kit. It's like a drum kit in a box. It's a traditional Peruvian instrument, actually, from South America. And it's been modified over the years by flamenco musicians and instrument makers. And I build them here in New Zealand, and I've modified them in my own way and worked out how I like to make them and how I like them to sound. And a good way to get into music, especially if you love tapping on things, tapping on your legs, tapping on the table.
I like what you said there with it being a drum in the box, because a drum kit is a whole lot to shift between bars, clubs, or even homes, whereas one of these you could take with you to a friend's house and just jam with it.
Yeah. It's for everyone really, and that's how I've really marketed this instrument. I'm a musician myself. I wanted to feel like I was making a really, really good cajon. And it doesn't matter to me whether someone is buying it this is their first instrument, or whether they know exactly what a cajon is and they've owned 5 of them and now they want a better one. For me, that's actually the same product for me. And I've managed to squish all that into one product, which I think it makes me really happy to do that. When you say drum kit in a box, a drum kit has lots of different components. It's quite large, it takes up a lot of space, it makes a lot of noise. People are living in smaller and smaller apartments and houses, and they also don't want to have that cost of if I buy this for my child or for my hobby, am I even going to like this, and is it going to be too loud? And so I sell a lot of these to people who are interested in drumming but are a bit afraid to buy a whole drum kit. I tell that to people who I meet at markets. They start trying to justify it out loud. Well, how can I? And then their partner will say something like, when we have a barbecue and it's out on the deck and someone's sitting on it, and Bob's got the guitar and Sandra's wants to sing a song, and it's just there, and actually you're already sitting on it because it's a seat, So it's in the corner of the lounge. It's not away in the cupboard. It's good to have instruments out and ready to go.
And it wasn't until I was at a friend's Christmas do where I saw one of these cajons and played on one, and we were all sitting out on a deck and the sun's going down. We didn't have to go to a jam room or anything. There was someone on a guitar, someone leading the singing of the group, and then the cajons kept the beat, and we were all just still around the table.
If you're sitting on the drum, and there aren't many drums that you sit on, and you're hitting it, you're feeling the rhythm as well. So a lot of deaf people who sit on the drum are having a great time, and they're in time. And I meet them at markets or festivals, and I just show them, look, if you hit it here, it sounds a bit different to here. And they're like, oh, cool, yeah, and it feels different too,
Before you mentioned that this was the Peruvians came up with this to start with, what are the touches that Phill and Tukituki Instruments have added and evolved from the stock standard Peruvian model?
Yeah, so the Peruvian style doesn't have a snare inside it, so it doesn't have the buzziness, which on a drum kit would be this one here, the bzz, sound. My drums have a snare in them. That's not necessarily something that I invented, but it's something I worked out how to do. It's a guitar string adjustable snare. And what I have added is a second side. So what you can do is spin the drum around and play the opposite side. And that has some wooden bongo sections. And how I came about that is someone asked me to make a kid's drum, a kid's cajon. And I didn't just want to shrink a large size cajon because I knew that all the bass would have gone. It would have been quite a compromised instrument. I wanted to make it more interesting. So I knew that if I put the sound hole on the side rather than the back, and I made another playable surface, then rather than just having a small compromised drum with no bass, you've got a small instrument with two different sides you can play. And so it's got bongos on one side and then a snare on the other. And then I changed my larger model to be the same. So now I only make these double-sided cajon drums, which I haven't really seen other companies do. And that's the thing that really sells my instruments.
I was reading on your website, there was a customer review, and they said that with this instrument, I have capability of producing an exceptional array of colours that can project above a symphony orchestra. Can it be used at that level?
So the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra percussion team got in touch with me because they were doing an opera which was written by a Spanish composer that had this cajon part in the score, and they said, well, we need to get hold of a cajon. And they found me and said, can you please make us some customized cajon drums? And so I made them a cajon, these double-sided cajon, and I put their logo on the side of it, and I went to go and see the performance. And he was right, because in the Michael Fowler Centre, the acoustics were so good, and they had to, this cajon didn't need any miking up or anything, and the orchestra was, I don't know, 100 people or so, you know. Wow. And it was great to see something that I'd made on the stage with such amazing musicians.
What got you into starting this as a business from purely a musical pleasure back in 2009?
It really just grew organically. I was just doing what made me feel good at the time, honestly. I was having a bit of a hard time in life, and I just needed to get up every day and decide what would get me out of bed, what would get me motivated, and not to think, where is this going, you know, because then my brain might start saying, wow, this is a waste of time, you know. So I just was like, I need to get to my grandfather's workshop and I need to build some instruments. You know, I was making flutes, I was making other things, and I wanted to make a guitar. Proved to be far too difficult for me. So I started making these drums, and initially they were not very good, so that challenged me to make a better one, and I just kept making them, and they kept stacking up in the corner. They weren't going anywhere. I don't even know I was telling many people that I was doing it, but just the challenge of making an instrument sing, that's the thing. Because I'm a musician, I know when an instrument is really shining, and that was what I was seeking for. And so I just had to keep going until I got somewhere near that.
So initially it was for your own benefit, your own mental health, and to feel like you were creating something or doing something that at least made the most of that one day. Yep. And then over time, as these boxes are stacking up, you're getting better and better at the making process around the cajon, but also the other instruments that you're making. At what point did someone say, hey Phil, can I give you some money and buy one of these off you?
About 6 months to a year after I made the first drum. So I'd probably made about, 50 or 100 prototypes and then pulled them apart and made more. And I'd probably finished about, 15 or 20 completed drums. And I'd given them away or like whatever to family and friends. And one of my friends said, "Can you make me a particularly nice one? And I'll pay you a little bit of money." And that was a big change for me, because someone's wanting to pay me money, and I feel responsible now for producing something valuable. What if it falls apart? What if it, you know what I mean? I knew that I could make them better. In fact, I've known that I still know that, you know what I mean? That's one of the things that drives me. I will make it and I'll be like, oh, it can be brighter, it can be cleaner, it can be whatever. And my friends would always tell me, like, they don't know what you're aiming for, so just be confident in what you've made so far, put a fair price on it. And they were right, like, every customer was happy with what they got. And no one was saying, hey, this one doesn't sound professional enough or something, It was me that had that sort of fussiness that I had, you know what I mean?
When did you put the Tukituki instrument's name and wrap around it?
When one of my friends said, look, you've got to get a business card, and then I realized, to have a business card I have to have a logo and a name and like a font and all this kind of stuff. And she said, well, you've already got that. And I realized that I'd been cutting this shape in the side of the drums ever since, the first, probably the third or fourth drum, And it was because I know I needed a sound hole, but it doesn't need to be that shape. It could be a square, it could be a thumbs up, it could be whatever. It just needs to be about this size because of the acoustics of the instrument. So I started playing with, I'll put a wave in the middle of this circle, I'll cut it with a jigsaw. And then I thought, oh, well, I'm not really a surfer. So I'll put like a koru or something in there. And I did that and it looked a bit like a dinosaur head, like this. I was like, that looks silly. So then I inverted it so that the hole was the koru, not a hole around the koru, but the koru was the hole. And then because of the tools I was using, I needed to give it a sort of a rounded edge in one of the corners. I couldn't make a right angle with a router. So I had to continue this side here because of the tool and make it be able to be cut in one sweep. So that's how that shape came about. And I'm glad that I had come up with a logo that way, rather than sitting down scratching my head going, okay, so maybe it should be a drum with like, someone's hand on the drum. I'm glad that I came up with that process organically. Just I need a sound hole. I've got this tool. What sort of shape can I cut with this tool?
You, with your history of third generation around the Tukituki River, I'm sure there's some pretty interesting timber you can find around that area to bring to life through your musical instruments.
Yeah. Let's see.
Thank you, Phill, for being on a KIWI Original. I've really appreciated your honesty and generosity today and sharing the Tukituki story, and look forward to sharing it with the New Zealand made fans.
Thanks very much, Ryan.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching this episode of a KIWI Original. If you like what you saw, then hit the subscribe button and you'll get other episodes just like this one in your inbox. Make sure you hit the bell too for notifications, and you'll be served up uniquely Kiwi stories like this one contributing to New Zealand's future.